Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to show you how Meems and I take a beat from an MPC into a finished Ableton Live project. There's many ways you could do this, so I'm not claiming that this is the only or best method, but if you're basically in this position where you want to take something from an MPC, you like where you got it, but then you want to finish it inside a DAW, then this is kind of the process that we go through. Now for demonstration purposes, this is what the beat is on the MPC. 137 BPM. By the way, this is actually in controller mode already. I'm actually playing this off of the MPC software on the computer, but I will be using it as a plugin inside Ableton. Now, in order for this stuff to work, you do have to have the drivers installed for your MPC, and it does need to be the particular MPC that you own. So if you had like an MPC1, installed the drivers, and then later on got like an MPCX SE or something like that, you need to install new drivers for the XSE or Key 61 or MPC1 Plus in order for it to communicate with the computer correctly. So keep that in mind. I tried to bypass that when I first loaded up the MPC1 Plus, and I was like, why is it not working? Turns out you have to install brand new drivers for each individual MPC. So with that out of the way, let's get to it. So as you can see, it says looking for a computer. That means that there's no software opened up. Sometimes it does glitch out and the software doesn't trigger the hardware to do its communication. When that happens, what I do is I take out the plugin from Ableton and then I paste it back in, and usually it picks it up at that point, but it can be a little finicky. So we have a brand new Ableton session, and we'll go into arranger mode here. So obviously we need the MPC plugin, so let's grab that. So I'm bringing it over to the MIDI channel. So we have a brand new plugin right here, and it actually worked first time, which is great. So the MPC1 Plus is communicating to the plugin. Now, something that I should have mentioned beforehand is you do have to actually copy the session from your hard drive or SD card in the MPC. So in the case of the MPC Live, what I did was I brought it over, plugged in via USB, put in controller mode, and then just copied the files directly over to the computer. Once the files are on your computer, you can then load it up on in controller mode, essentially. So I can just go browse, and then I can go over to places and go over to the hard drives. The one thing you do have to note as well is the BPM, because once it's inside Ableton, you will not have the BPM reference in there. At least I don't know of a way that you can do it, because it defaults to whatever Ableton's BPM is. So you always want to keep in mind what that BPM is before you actually load it up in Ableton. So I know that it was 137, so I'm going to go over to the master and say 137. And also, this session is actually already configured for Ableton, and that's why everything's muted at the moment. If you actually look at each track, see I have out 11, 12 for track 8, and the snare, hats, kick and snare is going out track 1 and 2, bass is going out 9, 10, soft arps 7, 8, all that stuff. I guess tip number 1 is splitting this stuff out into separate tracks. Now, in order to do that, you have to make audio tracks for the MPC. It's actually pretty easy. So if you go over to one of your audio tracks, like audio track 3 here, you have external in, you also have MPC. So if you go down to one MPC or wherever your MPC plugin is, you now have access to all the outputs of the MPC. And you can do pre-effects or post-effects. I like to do pre-effects for 1, 2, and then you just duplicate and make additional versions of this. So I did up to 11 and 12. I think that's enough. Yeah, that's how many outs that I was using on here. Once I've done that, I usually like to bundle these up into a group just for kind of housekeeping and stuff like that. When you do this a lot, you usually make a template, but I'm showing you that like you would set this up first, or you'd set it up a couple times just to get the hang of it to see what works with your productions. And then you'd make a template out of the session that makes the most sense for you. Next up, in order to hear what's coming out of the MPC plugin, you need to actually monitor all these channels. And actually what I usually do for the original plugin itself, or the plugin channel, I usually mute that because I don't want to hear what the plugin is sending out. I actually want to hear just what the audio tracks are monitoring. I take these audio tracks and I go input, and now all of them are being monitored. So if I hit play, nothing happens because I have the tracks muted. Let's unmute the tracks. And you can see them all coming in now. So now that we have that set up, we can actually multi-track the individual elements into their own tracks in Ableton. By the way, before I get too far ahead of myself, in order to change which track goes to which, go to the middle option right here, the squares, and then under plugin, you have out 3, 4. If you click on this, you have all the way up to 32, I believe. Yeah, out 1, 2. So you have a lot of control as to where the routing goes inside the MPC that then goes into the plugin. So just like the hardware version, same type of stuff can happen on here to where you want to route stuff, whether it's the submix, and the submix can go out to a particular output, which then can get tracked inside Ableton. Also, I would name these tracks as well, but for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to keep it as audio. We have this set up so we can hear everything, which is great. By the way, play and play start does not work when you're in this mode, which is unfortunate. There might be a workaround that I haven't discovered or haven't found online that people have been doing. If you know about that, like, let me know, drop them in the comments, because that would be great. You can get overdub to work in here, and I'll show you how to do that real quick. If you go into the plugin, if you go in the hardware section of your preferences, if you look on the hardware or on the actual MPC, you won't see the ability to adjust this setting. So this is where this gets a little sneaky. If you look in here, you will not see the option. But if you look on the screen or the plugin, whether it's the actual software as a DAW or a plugin, you will see under controls, you have record overdub, and you can say to host or to plugin. You want it to go to plugin. I found if I go to host, it doesn't really do anything. I can't actually trigger record. So I always say default to plugin, and then you can actually hit record or overdub as a normal function when you're working inside the MPC while in plugin mode or DAW mode on your computer. Little tip right there. I didn't know that for a while, and then people had mentioned that. So if you are one of those people that mentioned that, thank you very much, but that's a good tip to know. And actually, another thing that currently the DAW version of the MPC software on a Mac M2 is having a problem with is latency and buffer size. I've actually had to set the buffer size to 512. Yeah, 512 samples because it does click and pop currently in with Ableton. So I don't know if that's the case with Logic or any other DAW. I do notice that when I load up the MPC software with an M2 Mac, it does need a pretty big buffer in order to work correctly. That could change real quick in the future though. There could be a patch that drops and it fixes that like within a month or two. Just want to throw that out there. Now, what we do in this particular situation right here is Meems and I would figure out the arrangement. So that would mean that, like, how do we want it to flow? We'd say, let's just start with these and start from the beginning. You know, and be like, okay, and then maybe the bass comes in right here. You're like, okay, and then maybe everything comes in, but right before. You know, and then start kind of piecing out the arrangement. So what's great about this is you can be very hands-on with the experience of how things flow. If you bake it into a big sequence or a song sequence, then you're locked in. And that's okay. Like you might already know exactly how you want it. So if you do, then that's great. And you can go that route. And then you could actually like just explode the tracks or something like that and export those tracks and bring them in that way. Totally one way to do it. For us, we do like to have a little bit of experimentation when it comes to the arrangement side to just see how it flows. Maybe for a chorus or something, you drop out the kick and bass. Like maybe this is just the chorus right here. Or like some sort of, you know, harmony that happens. And then maybe for the verses, we take out, maybe it's just like, maybe keep the soft arcs in there. Or maybe it's pad. You know, so it's things like that that we'd experiment with to figure out how we want the arrangement to feel. So at this point, we would want to record what we have or the arrangement. So we'd select all the tracks, hold command, hit record, and then you can actually record all this stuff as it is. So let's say, you know, you just want lead and soft arps initially. Then bring in the bass. Got a note in there. Then bring everything in. And then we'd drop out like the melody. Yeah. You get the idea, right? Pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. We would take off monitoring at this point, go to auto. Also, it could have been on auto from the beginning. So that's one thing. If you know Ableton, then you already know all these intricacies for how the software will work for recording. So this is basically the first phase of getting something transferred into Ableton, because we want the arrangement to feel fluid and we want to have it paced out, and we would know exactly how long it's going to be. So we can actually have, you know, the ending essentially, or things mostly figured out towards the ending. So I'm going to load up the track that we did that actually has all that figured out. If you're enjoying this content and want to support the channel, consider a like and subscribe. It really helps out with the algorithm. And if you want to go beyond that, consider using our affiliate links below. Anything that you purchase using our affiliate links, whether it's cables or a particular piece of gear, helps out the channel. So if you do that, thank you very much. Okay, so this is the session that we actually recorded. We did the arrangement with. It doesn't have vocals and doesn't have extra stuff and doesn't have mixing or anything like that. But it is essentially, actually it might have a little mixing. Let me look. Oh yeah, drum bus, yeah. Valhalla. A little bit. There's a little bit of mixing stuff in here. Now, in this particular case, what I did was I split out the kick and snare, hi-hats, extra snare, and clap tracks, just in case I wanted to have more options for like punching holes or something. Because like if you bake the kick and snare in with that stuff, then obviously you can't mute them. Also, the kick was triggering a lot of Mother Ducker inside of like the Jura pad and definitely the mini D bass. So I wanted that experience inside the recording, and that's another reason why sometimes you want to make sure everything's playing together, because that way they can all feel the way they do together. Yeah, basically you got your drums, and then we had the Jura pad, the lead, and the bass, and same type of thing. My drums are going through my hardware compressor, a Drummer 1978, my go-to hardware compressor for drums. So as you can see, we basically recorded just under 3 minutes of an arrangement for this track. And I did label things, you know, Jura pad, Jura lead, Jura soft harp, mini D bass, a lot of Jura. We've been really enjoying that Jura plugin. I think it's awesome. And also the drums, I believe, is from the expansion pack Syntactical Expression. So if you want to pick up some drums from us, you can go to our website and get these drums. Actually, it's just the kick and snare. The hats and the extra stuff was from the drum synth plugin inside of the MPC. But yeah, anyways, besides the point. So with that out of the way, we have our arrangement. Now at this point, what we do is we get rid of the MPC plugin. Because remember when I said that it needs a big buffer size? Well, that's why you want to delete the plugin out of there. That's post MPC. You're not using the MPC anymore. At this point, you have the arrangement. You basically need to go into like finishing mode, meaning record vocals, put finishing touches on stuff, mix, and all that. So like I said, delete that, and then I changed the buffer size back to like 64 or something. So there's minimal latency. Now I'm gonna open up the finished track to show you what we did. This is the finished track, and as you can see, the MIDI channel that had the MPC plugins gone. We have vocals in here, Meems lead vocal, and then some harmony vocals and all that. And then we also have some additional Summit tracks that were like texture, sparkle, you know, ear candy type of stuff. And then the final two tracks is print and instrumental. So it's the print is the main mix, because we do use analog summing. And again, I have outboard compression and all that from the drums. Depending on the mix, sometimes I use a lot of outboard gear. Sometimes I just use, you know, one compressor or something like that. But I always end up printing it because it is going through a summing box. So it gets printed. And I do have an instrumental version as well, and always get an instrumental version of your stuff if you are using vocals, because you never know when a music supervisor says, hey, can I use your stuff in a movie or a TV show? And we need the instrumental version as well. And if you got it, then you're golden. But as you can see, it's not too much different. The main thing is obviously we added vocals, you know? And this is really one of the big reasons why we don't want to finish on an MPC specifically. With Meems vocals, we're already using 6. We're already using 6 tracks right there, audio tracks. I use a fair amount of effects as well. See, I got Melodyne for just a little bit of pitch correction, compressor, chorus, air flavor, Pro Q3, Valhalla, Valhalla vintage verb. So Valhalla delay and Valhalla vintage verb. That's just on the lead vocal. There's a lot of effects kind of being baked into there already. In those type of situations, I don't really find it very easy or conducive to do vocals on an MPC. And maybe that's just because of the way I've done stuff in the past. You know, I've been producing for 20 years and I have methods and ways that I like to go about things. And when it comes to vocals, I definitely prefer to do them in a DAW. I think a lot of people are like that. One of the major things is take lanes, you know, like, so we have take 1, take 2, and then take 3 had the majority of it. And then we redid verse 2 like 3 more times. And then the last one of verse 2 was the one that we wanted. So we kept that. You know, you can't do that inside of an MPC. I don't really see myself ever wanting the platform of the MPC to go that direction. I think it would just make things really cumbersome and cluttered. Now, that's not to say you can't do it, because obviously people have been recording vocals inside the MPC, so I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying for me and our methods, we prefer to do our vocal recording productions in a DAW. The other thing that we do is add some additional sparkly candy type of stuff. You know, you have this beat and it is baked in an MPC. In order to do all the extra intricacies, you do have to spend a lot more time on the actual sequence of that stuff. Or you can load it inside a DAW and then treat it as like a keyboard pass, find some patches and play through it. So this first patch, what is this? So I'm adding some extra pad ambiance. And I'm playing it live, you know? Like, I didn't record any MIDI for this. I wanted the experience to be as if a band member is playing along. So that is right here. Played an additional line as well. Once you have the general idea of the track and you know how things are feeling, you can kind of take a step back and be like, what's little sparkly things or little pockets that you'd want to add that would lift something or, you know, give some sort of extra bite to something. I'm also a proponent of not overproducing. I'm not trying to make everything have a super shiny veneer on top of everything. So I try to limit this session. In fact, this particular session is like, this is an afternoon. So we have everything, we have the beat, we have the song kind of already thought out. We come in, we take an afternoon, transfer the stuff, solidify the arrangement, record the vocals, and add a few extras to the mix. You know, like that's basically an afternoon right there, assuming that your beat is already done. You know, is this the extra synth line? Yeah. Again, I'm just playing live. Kind of sloppy too, but I feel like it adds to the vibe. But I mean, that's basically the idea right there. You know, it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. It's just, when you can, you add a little intricacy, you know, a little like extra sparkle, a little layer on top. It doesn't have to be crazy. It just needs like a little bit in there to change the way the listener is hearing something. That's actually another reason why you could take multiple passes with a synth or a couple synths and just add some additional texture here and there to bring it in. It doesn't need to be the main feature, you know, like I'm not replacing the bass or something, or I'm not, well, I did add a lead line kind of, but like it's not really the feature in there. There's other things that are kind of featured that the track supports, you know, so it's really like, where's some tasteful things that you can add here and there. That's kind of the idea behind it. But it's basically the same beat over and over with some pockets and then some vocals added and some additional sparkly synths from the Summit. Big fan of the Summit, by the way. Novation Summit, one of my favorite keyboards. By the way, if you do want to hear this track in its full entirety, there is a link below to our music channel, Tefty Meems, if you want to check it out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what we do when we want to finish up a track. If we're taking it from the MPC, you know, this is the process. Yeah, it could be any DAW. It could be Logic Pro, it could be Studio One, doesn't really matter. I'm just showcasing how we do it particularly. But I'd love to hear from you and what you think and how you're actually doing your process finishing tracks. Drop a comment below, let me know. We'll definitely check it out. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. A like and subscribe is always greatly appreciated. And if you are planning on picking up any gear, using our affiliate links below is the next step of helping us out. We also have a Patreon, and we have sample packs on our website. But that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time for another one. Peace.